The Secret Life of H. Holmes. This is fiction based on a true story. Prologue: The Shadows of Chicago. In the bustling streets of late 19th century Chicago, a city growing taller and more magnificent with each passing day, a shadow lurked in the darkest corners of society. The gaslit streets and grandeur of the Chicago World's Fair concealed a malevolent presence that would come to be known as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. His real name was Herman Mudgett, but this was a name he wished to forget, buried beneath layers of deceit and an elaborate double life. Holmes was a man of charm and charisma, a physician who could put even the most anxious patients at ease with a disarming smile. He had an uncanny ability to blend into the bustling metropolis of Chicago, a city in the midst of rapid transformation. Skyscrapers were piercing the heavens, and electric lights were illuminating the night sky. It was a city on the cusp of modernity, yet within this electrifying vortex of progress, Holmes was something far more sinister. Beneath his suave exterior lay a wicked mind that had hatched a diabolical plan, a plan that would transform him from a respectable doctor into one of the most notorious serial killers in history. His grand ambition was to construct a grand hotel, but this was no ordinary establishment. It would come to be known as the World's Fair Hotel, a misnomer that belied its true, horrifying nature. The very construction of this hotel was shrouded in secrecy. Holmes oversaw every detail, from the blueprints to the laborers he hired. He was a master of manipulation and managed to keep his true intentions hidden from prying eyes. The workers toiled away, oblivious to the grotesque design of the building they were erecting. Hidden within its walls were secret passages, concealed chambers, soundproof rooms, and doors that led to nowhere. Holmes' sinister obsession with constructing this hellish abode was driven by a desire to fulfill his darkest desires. He was drawn to the macabre, compelled by an irresistible urge to commit heinous acts, all while maintaining the facade of a respectable physician. The women who fell under his sinister spell were lured by his promises of a better life, but they were unwittingly walking into a nightmare. Each room in the hotel was a puzzle, and every corridor led to a different kind of suffering. Some rooms were equipped with gas lines, allowing Holmes to asphyxiate his victims at will. Others had chutes leading to the basement, where he would perform horrifying experiments on their lifeless bodies. Holmes' charming facade allowed him to select his victims with ease, and as the shadows deepened over the city, he would entice them into his nightmarish labyrinth. Few would emerge unscathed, and most would never emerge at all. As the city of Chicago continued to rise, its very skyline changing before the eyes of its residents, Holmes' World's Fair Hotel would also reach heights of infamy. The dark secrets hidden within its walls would slowly seep into the collective consciousness, casting a long and haunting shadow over the city of the big shoulders. Chapter 1: The Arrival. In the year 1886, a city teeming with boundless opportunities welcomed the enigmatic Dr. Henry Howard Holmes to its bustling streets. As the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows across the cobblestone paths, he stepped off the train, a man of mystery concealed beneath a charming veneer. Chicago, at the cusp of a transformative era, was a beacon of progress. It was a city that seemed to scrape the very heavens with its burgeoning skyline of towering skyscrapers. Electric lights pierced the night, transforming the city into a radiant jewel on the shores of Lake Michigan. But within this electrifying vortex of progress, Holmes was a dark comet streaking across the skies. Holmes, the name he now embraced, had chosen Chicago for a reason. It was a city that attracted dreamers, pioneers, and those seeking to reinvent themselves. It was a place where fortunes were made, and where anonymity was a cloak that could be worn with ease. Here, he saw an opportunity to shed his past, a past that he was eager to forget. To establish his cover, Holmes opened a pharmacy, an innocuous front that masked his more sinister intentions. His reputation as a physician, his charm, and his engaging manner allowed him to quickly gain the trust of the local populace. People flocked to him for medical advice and remedies, believing they were in the capable hands of a caring doctor. Little did they know that the true nature of his enterprise lay hidden behind closed doors. Holmes had grand ambitions, ambitions that would soon send shivers down the spines of those who encountered him. His vision was to construct a grand hotel, a venture that would stand as a monument to his malevolence. But this was no ordinary hotel, it was to be a building that defied description, a grotesque masterpiece of deception and wicked ingenuity. As Chicago's skyline continued to rise, so did Holmes' hotel, growing steadily in size and infamy. It was a construction that defied comprehension, a labyrinthine structure that concealed the dark heart of its creator. Secret passages snaked through the building like arteries, leading to hidden chambers and hidden horrors. Trapdoors and hidden exits were scattered throughout, designed to ensnare and entrap those who entered, and to facilitate Holmes' sinister desires. The hotel's facade was grand and imposing, a reflection of the city's aspirations, and it bore the bold inscription, "The World's Fair Hotel." To the unsuspecting eye, it seemed a place of luxury and respite, a beacon of hospitality in the bustling city. However, behind its ornate doors, a nightmarish realm awaited those who dared to venture within. Holmes' boundless ambition, insatiable greed, and malevolent intentions would transform this hotel into a crucible of suffering, a place where innocence was shattered, and lives were extinguished. As Chicago continued its relentless ascent into the modern age, Holmes' World's Fair Hotel would reach heights of infamy unparalleled in the annals of criminal history, its tale of terror, deceit, and darkness forever etched into the city's very soul. Chapter 2: The Castle's Construction. Holmes' ambitious vision began to take tangible form as the construction of the World's Fair Hotel got underway. It was a marvel of engineering that would defy conventional standards of hospitality. The facade of the building presented an image of grandeur, with ornate details and luxurious appointments that masked the dark secrets hidden within. Underneath the layers of grandeur and sophistication lay the sinister underbelly of the hotel. Holmes had carefully overseen every aspect of its design, from the blueprints to the laborers he hired, ensuring that his true intentions remained concealed. He was a master of manipulation, his magnetic charm and impeccable mannerisms keeping his workforce in blissful ignorance of the true nature of their project. As the structure grew taller, it became apparent that this was no ordinary hotel. The layout of the building defied conventional logic, with hidden passages and concealed chambers that snaked throughout its dark interior. Secret doors, trapdoors, and corridors to nowhere were cleverly integrated into the very fabric of the building. These architectural aberrations were not the result of design flaws but rather a deliberate plan to entrap and bewilder anyone who ventured within. Soundproof rooms were another disturbing feature of the castle. Holmes had carefully engineered these chambers to muffle the cries and pleas of his victims, ensuring that the horrors unfolding behind closed doors remained hidden from the outside world. It was in these rooms that the malevolent doctor would indulge in his darkest desires, subjecting his unsuspecting victims to unspeakable torment. Holmes' unrelenting attention to detail ensured that every inch of the building served a sinister purpose. There were gas lines installed in certain rooms, allowing him to asphyxiate his victims at will. Others had chutes leading to the basement, where he would perform horrifying experiments on the lifeless bodies. The hotel was not merely a place of lodging, it was a twisted masterpiece, a construction that mirrored the dark labyrinth of its creator's mind. Holmes watched with a sense of pride and satisfaction as the castle grew, its ominous presence hidden in plain sight. The world beyond its walls remained blissfully unaware of the horrors that lay within. To the outside observer, the World's Fair Hotel was a symbol of Chicago's prosperity and progress, a beacon of modernity rising alongside the city's towering skyscrapers. But as the castle's construction neared completion, it would become clear that Holmes' ambitions extended far beyond the realm of hospitality. The enigmatic doctor had built a fortress of malevolence, a sinister monument to his darkest desires. As Chicago continued to evolve, its very skyline changing before the eyes of its residents, Holmes' Hotel would rise to infamy, a place of terror and torment that would send shivers down the spines of those who dared to enter. Chapter 3: Dark Passions. With the completion of his sinister masterpiece, the World's Fair Hotel, Holmes' obsessions grew in lockstep with his expanding wealth. Behind his charming facade, he nurtured a dark compulsion to indulge in unspeakable horrors. He had meticulously crafted his castle to cater to these sinister desires, and the unsuspecting world outside remained blissfully ignorant of the horrors lurking within its walls. Holmes, with his beguiling charisma, found it all too easy to lure young women into his lair. With promises of a better life and the allure of the grand, World's Fair Hotel, he ensnared his victims in a web of deceit. These women, hopeful and trusting, were drawn to the allure of a bright future and the captivating doctor who offered it. Little did they know that, once they entered the sinister embrace of the castle, they were entering a realm of darkness and despair. Each room, each corner of the building, was a carefully constructed puzzle designed to play into Holmes' demented desires. Each victim was a piece in his twisted game, and the rules were known only to him. Some rooms were equipped with gas lines, a horrifying feature that allowed Holmes to control the very breath of his victims. With a turn of a valve, he could unleash deadly gas, asphyxiating those who had been unfortunate enough to fall into his clutches. The ghastly silence that followed was broken only by the soft hiss of escaping gas and the desperate gasps for air that fell on deaf ears. Other rooms featured chutes that led to the basement, a place where the darkest of horrors unfolded. Here, Holmes conducted his gruesome experiments, performing macabre dissections and engaging in acts of unspeakable sadism on the lifeless bodies of his victims. The basement was a nightmarish laboratory where life and death danced in a gruesome waltz, and where every floorboard seemed to creak with the weight of unspeakable secrets. For the women who found themselves ensnared within the castle's dark embrace, there was no escape. The labyrinthine hallways and hidden doors served as a malevolent maze designed to confound and bewilder. In the shadows, they would become disoriented, their sense of direction utterly shattered. Each corridor, each room, seemed like a different kind of suffering, a new chapter in their descent into the abyss. Holmes reveled in the anguish he inflicted, the power he wielded over the innocent souls who had been lured into his twisted world. The castle that had been built with such precision was now the stage for his grotesque performance, a place where innocence was shattered, and hope extinguished. As Chicago continued its rapid ascent into the modern age, the World's Fair Hotel remained a disturbing anomaly, a place of hidden horrors concealed behind a facade of grandeur. The enigmatic Dr. H. Holmes continued to weave his web of malevolence, a web that grew more intricate with each new victim ensnared within. Chapter 4: Inspector Geyer's Pursuit. As darkness continued to descend upon the city of Chicago, Detective Frank Geyer found himself assigned to a case that would lead him into the very heart of darkness. The sudden and mysterious disappearances of numerous young women had sent shockwaves through the city, and Geyer was determined to uncover the truth. Unbeknownst to him, this investigation would lead him into a labyrinth of deception, horror, and the enigma of Dr. H. Holmes. Geyer was a seasoned and tenacious detective, known for his unrelenting pursuit of justice. He had seen his fair share of gruesome crimes and vile criminals, but the case of the missing women sent shivers down his spine. The sheer number of disappearances and the lack of leads left the city in a state of fearful unease. As Geyer delved deeper into the case, he began to connect the dots, revealing a pattern of deceit and malevolence. The disappearances were clustered around a particular area of the city, an area that seemed to radiate an air of foreboding. It was there that Geyer uncovered the dark and mysterious figure of Dr. Holmes, a man who had charmed his way into the city's inner circles and established the notorious World's Fair Hotel. Holmes, the charismatic physician, had risen to prominence within the city's social elite, his charm masking his sinister intentions. Geyer's investigation unveiled a web of deceit that Holmes had carefully woven, involving insurance fraud, false identities, and an increasing number of missing persons. The detective realized that the charming doctor was the common thread connecting these seemingly unrelated cases. The labyrinthine castle that concealed Holmes' sinister deeds became the focal point of Geyer's inquiry. The building was a nightmarish puzzle, its construction belying a nefarious purpose. It was a place that confounded and disoriented, a structure with hidden passages, trapdoors, and secret chambers where the horrors unfolded. As Geyer delved further into the secrets of the murder castle, he discovered the sinister experiments conducted in its basement, the gas chambers, and the elaborate soundproof rooms. Each discovery revealed a chilling piece of the puzzle, a glimpse into the depths of Holmes' depravity. Despite the daunting challenges and the formidable enigma of Holmes, Detective Geyer pressed on with unyielding determination. He knew that the city's very soul was at stake, and he was resolved to bring the malevolent doctor to justice. The pursuit of Holmes would lead Geyer down a treacherous path, one filled with danger, deception, and the ever-present specter of death. But he was not one to be deterred. As he continued to unravel the layers of the sinister plot, the shadows of Chicago grew darker, and the city's secrets more disturbing. In the heart of this metropolis, the enigmatic Dr. H. Holmes continued to charm and beguile, even as his castle of horrors lay hidden in plain sight. But Detective Geyer was closing in, and the malevolent web of deception that Holmes had woven was beginning to unravel. Chapter 5: The Web Tightens. The relentless pursuit of Detective Frank Geyer was gradually closing in on the enigmatic Dr. H. Holmes. As the investigator combed through the dark tapestry of disappearances, fraudulent insurance claims, and hidden remains, the noose around Holmes' neck began to tighten. But Holmes, a master of deception, remained an elusive and captivating figure, maintaining the facade of a respectable doctor even as the shadows of his malevolence grew ever darker. Geyer's investigation revealed a chilling pattern that connected the missing persons to the enigmatic physician. The seemingly unrelated cases converged, forming a sinister web of deceit and death. The maze of missing women who had fallen into the abyss of the World's Fair Hotel became a maze of breadcrumbs that Geyer was determined to follow. The detective unearthed a trail of fraudulent insurance claims, a nefarious scheme that Holmes had cunningly orchestrated. He had taken out life insurance policies on the women he lured into his lair, setting the stage for their sinister fates. As Geyer delved deeper into this financial web, it became clear that the charming doctor had not only preyed upon the lives of the innocent but had also exploited their deaths for personal gain. Holmes' ability to maintain his veneer of respectability was a testament to his manipulative genius. To the outside world, he continued to be seen as a well-regarded physician, a man of charisma and charm. He frequented social circles and rubbed shoulders with Chicago's elite, all the while concealing the horrors he had perpetrated within the walls of his castle. As Geyer and his team continued to investigate, the sinister secrets of the World's Fair Hotel were laid bare. The hidden chambers, the soundproof rooms, the gas chambers, all were revealed as the macabre playground of a malevolent genius. It was a place where innocence was crushed and hope extinguished, where the cries of victims were silenced by the impenetrable walls. Holmes' ability to navigate the intricacies of deception was a formidable challenge for Geyer. The detective was confronted not only with the physical horrors within the castle but also the psychological torment that Holmes inflicted on his victims. Each piece of evidence was a puzzle, a cryptic message from a man who reveled in the suffering he caused. The city of Chicago watched with bated breath as Geyer's investigation unfolded. The knowledge of Holmes' dark double life sent shivers through its residents, and the city's skyline, though ever ascending, seemed to cast longer shadows as the truth continued to elude them. Holmes, the master of deception, remained one step ahead. He was an enigma, a charismatic figure who had hidden the depths of his malevolence beneath a captivating mask. But Geyer, relentless and unyielding, was determined to unravel the mystery. The web of deceit was closing in on the enigmatic doctor, and the noose was tightening around his neck. Chapter 6: The Devil's Den. The relentless pursuit of Detective Frank Geyer continued to tighten the noose around the enigmatic Dr. H. Holmes. As the investigator drew closer to exposing the true extent of Holmes' malevolence, the dark empire the charming physician had built began to crumble under the weight of impending justice. Holmes, ever the cunning manipulator, recognized that his carefully constructed world was in grave jeopardy. The walls of the World's Fair Hotel, his sinister castle of horrors, were closing in on him. He could feel the heat of Detective Geyer's pursuit, and it was a fire he could not easily extinguish. In a desperate attempt to cover his tracks and erase the damning evidence within the murder castle, Holmes devised a diabolical plan. On a fateful night, he set fire to the building, reducing it to a smoldering heap of ashes and twisted metal. The blaze illuminated the night sky with a hellish glow, casting eerie shadows over the city of Chicago. The fire was an inferno of destruction, consuming the labyrinthine passages and the sinister secrets they contained. The gas chambers, soundproof rooms, and concealed chambers that had witnessed unspeakable horrors were now reduced to charred remnants of a malevolent past. The castle's ornate facade, the very symbol of grandeur and deception, crumbled into ruin. Chicago watched in shock and disbelief as the notorious murder castle was devoured by flames. The city's residents, already reeling from the revelation of Holmes' dark double life, could scarcely believe their eyes. It was as though the very embodiment of evil was being purged from the city, but the scars it left behind ran deep. Holmes, the master of manipulation, managed to escape the fiery chaos he had ignited. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of smoke and ashes. While the World's Fair Hotel was reduced to a smoldering ruin, the enigmatic doctor remained at large, his whereabouts known only to himself. However, the monstrous deeds that had unfolded within the murder castle could not be so easily erased. The memory of the horrors, the tales of missing women, and the trail of fraudulent insurance claims were etched into the city's collective consciousness. The legacy of Dr. H. Holmes, and the horrors he had perpetrated, would continue to haunt Chicago for years to come. The fire that had destroyed the castle did little to extinguish the darkness that Holmes had unleashed. The sinister web of deceit, malevolence, and manipulation he had woven would linger in the city's memory, a chilling reminder that evil could lurk in the most unexpected places. Detective Geyer's relentless pursuit was far from over, and the shadows cast by the Devil's Den were not easily dispelled. As Chicago continued to evolve and rebuild itself, it did so with the haunting knowledge of the horrors that had unfolded within the infamous murder castle. Chapter 7: The Depths of Depravity. As the smoldering remnants of the World's Fair Hotel collapsed into a twisted heap of charred ruins, Dr. H. Holmes believed he had outwitted the authorities and left the shadows of his malevolence behind. The inferno that had consumed his murder castle was a grim curtain, he thought, hiding the horrors he had perpetrated. But the depths of his depravity seemed boundless, and his thirst for blood remained unquenched. Holmes was not a man easily deterred, and the extinguishing of his diabolical lair did little to curb his insatiable appetite for malevolence. The fire, in his mind, was a temporary setback, a smokescreen that obscured his true intentions. As the ashes of his castle settled, he was already planning his next move. With a chilling resolve, Holmes continued to lure unsuspecting victims into his clutches. His charm and charisma, honed over years of deception, remained as potent as ever. The women who encountered him saw only the veneer of respectability, the charming doctor who offered them a better life, but they could not fathom the horrors lurking beneath. Holmes was a predator, and his twisted desires knew no bounds. He had perfected the art of manipulation, drawing his victims into a web of deceit from which escape seemed impossible. Each woman who entered his sphere of influence became another pawn in his malevolent game, a piece to be used and discarded at his whim. The city of Chicago, still reeling from the revelation of Holmes' dark double life, watched with a sense of dread as the malevolent doctor continued to ensnare the innocent. His methods were as insidious as they were effective, and the women who fell under his spell found themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Holmes' capacity for cruelty was boundless. He reveled in the power he held over his victims, in the terror he could inspire with a single glance, and in the suffering he could inflict with the mere twist of a knife. The malevolent doctor's actions continued to defy comprehension, and the depths of his depravity seemed to plummet ever deeper. While Holmes believed that he had successfully evaded capture by orchestrating the fire that destroyed the murder castle, he could not escape the relentless pursuit of Detective Frank Geyer. The detective, unyielding and determined, remained hot on his trail, inching ever closer to unmasking the true extent of Holmes' malevolence. Chapter 8: The Confession. In a shocking twist of fate, Dr. H. Holmes was finally apprehended, and the malevolent enigma that had cast a long shadow over Chicago was about to unravel before the world's horrified gaze. With his arrest came a chilling revelation, the confession of unspeakable crimes that sent shockwaves through the city and beyond. Holmes had remained one step ahead of the authorities for years, a cunning manipulator who had expertly concealed his dark double life. But the relentless pursuit of Detective Frank Geyer had finally cornered the charismatic doctor, exposing the horrors he had wrought within the walls of the infamous World's Fair Hotel. As the world recoiled in horror, Holmes began to reveal the twisted tapestry of his malevolence. His confession was a descent into madness, a chilling journey through the darkest recesses of his depraved mind. The true extent of his crimes was beyond comprehension, and it left the authorities scrambling to bring him to justice. Holmes detailed the construction of the murder castle, a place he had designed to fulfill his darkest desires. He recounted the horrors that unfolded within its walls, the gas chambers, soundproof rooms, and hidden chutes that led to the basement of unspeakable torment. He spoke of the women he had lured into his clutches, their trust betrayed by the very doctor who had promised them a better life. The confession revealed a heartless predator who had preyed upon the innocence of countless women. Holmes described his methods of deception, how he had manipulated his victims with charm and charisma, only to subject them to unimaginable suffering. The details were chilling, the accounts of cruelty beyond belief. The city of Chicago, already traumatized by the revelation of Holmes' dark double life, was left in a state of shock as the true depths of his malevolence were unveiled. The horror of the murder castle was no longer a hidden secret but a stark reality, a place of unspeakable torment where the cries of victims had gone unheard. The world beyond Chicago watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as Holmes confessed to his crimes. The enigmatic doctor's actions defied comprehension, and the scale of his malevolence was staggering. He had created a fortress of darkness, a place of unspeakable cruelty, and his confession painted a chilling portrait of a mind consumed by evil. As the authorities scrambled to gather evidence and build a case against Holmes, the city's skyline, though changing and evolving, was marked by the haunting memory of the infamous murder castle. The relentless pursuit of justice had collided with the depths of depravity, and the world watched with bated breath as the sinister tale of Dr. H. Holmes continued to unfold. Chapter 9: The Trial. Holmes' trial became a sensation, a dark spectacle that captivated the nation and the world. The evidence against him was overwhelming, a chilling testament to the depths of his malevolence. The city of Chicago, still haunted by the horrors that had unfolded within the infamous murder castle, watched with a mixture of morbid fascination and relief as the trial unfolded. The courtroom was filled to capacity, the air thick with tension and anticipation. As the prosecution presented its case, the true scale of Holmes' crimes came into focus. The stories of the women who had fallen victim to his charms, only to be subjected to unimaginable suffering, were recounted in agonizing detail. The evidence against Holmes was damning. The confessions he had made during his arrest, the grim accounts of the murder castle's horrors, and the testimony of witnesses who had encountered his malevolence left no room for doubt. The charismatic doctor who had once been the toast of Chicago was now exposed as a heartless predator, a master of manipulation who had exploited the innocence of his victims. The city of Chicago breathed a collective sigh of relief as the trial unfolded. The relentless pursuit of justice had led to the courtroom, and it was here that the city hoped to see the malevolent doctor held accountable for his crimes. The scars of his reign of terror would never fully heal, but the trial was a step toward closure, a reckoning with the darkness that had cast a long shadow over the city. The verdict was swift and unambiguous. Holmes was found guilty of multiple counts of murder, a verdict that sent shockwaves through the courtroom and beyond. The sentence was equally unyielding, a condemnation to death that marked the end of Holmes' reign of terror. The city of Chicago, though forever marked by the horrors of the murder castle, could finally breathe a collective sigh of relief. Justice had been served, and the enigmatic doctor would face the ultimate consequence for his malevolence. As the trial came to a close, the city's skyline continued to evolve and rebuild itself, but the haunting memory of the infamous murder castle would forever linger. Chapter 10: The Endgame. As H. Holmes awaited his impending execution, he reveled in the infamy he had achieved. He was not a man who expressed remorse or regret for his heinous acts. Instead, he relished the notoriety that surrounded his name. Holmes had become a puzzle, an enigma that fascinated and terrified in equal measure. The sinister tale of Dr. H. Holmes had left an indelible mark on the city of Chicago, a dark chapter in its history that could never be erased. The murder castle, a place of unspeakable horror, remained etched into the collective memory of the city. Its shadows still cast a long and haunting presence, even as the city's skyline continued to change and evolve. Holmes' story was one of malevolence, deception, and the depths of human depravity. He had manipulated and preyed upon the innocence of those who had trusted him, leaving a trail of suffering and death in his wake. His actions defied comprehension, and his legacy was one of terror and darkness. Despite the horrors he had perpetrated, Holmes was not a man who feared his impending execution. He saw it as the culmination of his macabre journey, the final act in a sinister drama that had played out over the years. He remained an enigma to the end, a man who had reveled in the darkness he had created. Holmes' story would endure, a testament to the chilling capacity for evil that could lurk in the most unexpected places. It was a tale that continued to captivate and terrify, a reminder that the line between charm and malevolence could be dangerously thin. As Holmes' execution drew near, the city of Chicago could finally begin to heal, knowing that justice had been served. The scars of his reign of terror would never fully fade, but the city could now face the future with a renewed sense of hope and resilience. In the end, Dr. H. Holmes remained an enigma, a puzzle that both fascinated and terrified. His story was a dark chapter in Chicago's history, one that would forever be remembered as a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most vibrant and thriving cities. Epilogue: The Legacy. The twisted double life of H. Holmes had etched an indelible mark on the annals of criminal history. His legacy was one of darkness, a chilling reminder that even the most charming facade could conceal the darkest of secrets. The infamous murder castle he had built had become a legend, a place of nightmares, and a stark testament to the capacity for malevolence that could lurk in the most unexpected places. As the years passed, the city of Chicago continued to rebuild itself, its skyline evolving and changing with the ever-advancing march of progress. The Great Fire that had ravaged the city was a distant memory, and the scars of Holmes' reign of terror began to heal. Yet, the memory of the enigmatic doctor and his unspeakable horrors would never fully fade. The murder castle remained a haunting presence in the city's collective memory. Though reduced to ashes and rubble, its shadows lingered, a grim reminder of the evil that had unfolded within its walls. The very streets that Chicagoans walked, the buildings they passed, carried the echoes of Holmes' malevolence. Holmes' story had become a cautionary tale, a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. It was a narrative that continued to captivate and terrify, a reminder that evil could lurk in the most unexpected places. The city, once shaken to its core by the revelation of Holmes' dark double life, had emerged stronger, more resilient, and with a heightened awareness of the need for vigilance. The memory of Holmes, the charming physician who had manipulated and preyed upon the innocent, served as a haunting reminder that appearances could be deceiving. The legacy of his reign of terror was a sobering lesson that transcended time, a warning that the veneer of respectability could conceal the most malevolent of intentions. As Chicago continued to move forward, it did so with the knowledge that the past could never truly be erased. The memory of Holmes and his horrors would forever linger, a spectral presence in the city's history. It was a tale of suspense, intrigue, and the enduring legacy of the enigmatic Dr. H. Holmes, a legacy that would continue to cast its long shadow over the city's vibrant and ever-evolving skyline.